Everybody rolls around. I lay on my weekday boots down. I put on my glove rags and pay the time. Hey, 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 hey. Oh, yeah, yeah. 'Cause that's when I party down. Party down. Party hard. Party down.
Welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Show. As I mentioned in last week's show, this past weekend was always going to be a bit of a dud in terms of new movies. A few returning movies were going to be dominating, and that was definitely the case. There's only one new wide release opened in the top 5. I'm recording this on Monday afternoon, so I'm still mostly working off of the studio estimates from Sunday, and those numbers might change by later today. I apologize. I have to record this when I can. The Super Mario Galaxy movie crossed the 300 million mark domestically in its second weekend, adding another 69 million this weekend, which was down 48% from its monster opening weekend over Easter. It has made 308.1 million domestically and another 321 million overseas to make it the biggest movie of 2026 so far. Amazon MGM sci-fi epic Project Hail Mary, starring Ryan Gosling, had another massive hold in its fourth weekend, dropping just 23% with 24.6 million. It has grossed 257 million domestically since opening in March, with almost the exact same amount overseas. Right now, it's going to keep pushing its way to 300 million, as it'll keep returning to IMAX theaters as they open up for it. In some ways, it doesn't have any direct sci-fi competition until Lucasfilm's The Mandalorian and Grogu, which opens over Memorial Day weekend in a month. Zendaya and Robert Pattinson's The Drama added a few more theaters in its second weekend, and it was able to maintain third place with 8.7 million, down just 39% from Easter weekend. It has grossed 38 million in its first 10 days, which is a decent start, showing that word of mouth is helping to drive business. In fourth place, You, Me, and Tuscany was the latest rom-com from producer Will Packer, targeted mainly towards Black women, pairing Halle Bailey from The Little Mermaid and Regé-Jean Page from Bridgerton. Although Universal began its marketing campaign on the later side, it ended up exactly where I predicted with my updated prediction of 8 million. That was enough for it to open in fourth place behind the 3 stronger returning movies. Although reviews were mixed at best, ending up with 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, You, Me, and Tuscany got an A- on CinemaScore, which means that the film's targeted audience liked what they saw, and they could tell their friends to go see it. Even so, they only give it 1 week to pick up the slack, since it won't fare very well against Lionsgate's Michael when it opens on April 24th. Disney Pixar's Hoppers continues to do well, dropping just 30% in its 6th weekend to take 5th place with 4.1 million. It has grossed 157.1 million domestically so far, and though it's not one of Pixar's bigger movies, it's doing better than the last few, showing that word of mouth for Hoppers has been good. That has allowed it to pick up more business after the opening of Super Mario Galaxy over Easter. BTS World Tour Arirang, a live viewing of a concert movie from the K-pop stars, did much worse than I was expecting, opening 6th place with 2.4 million in 1,189 theaters. Just goes to show you that if you're a popular K-pop boy band who vanishes for 4 years, it's going to be hard to get the fans back when you return. Still, that did better than the independent film company and Shudder's Faces of Death, which opened in 1,620 theaters after being the AMC Scream Unseen last week. It was already very front-loaded, making most of its opening Friday in those previews, then tapping out in some place with 1.7 million. Faces of Death received a C CinemaScore, which was probably to be expected since the movie received mixed reviews at best. By comparison, Neon opened the Japanese video game adaptation X8 into 490 theaters, but the brilliant last-minute marketing helped spark interest, enough for it to break into the top 10 with 1.4 million, despite having 2 other new wide horror releases, including Faces of Death and Hunting Matthew Nichols, both of which were mystery movies a few weeks back. Now, Hunting Matthew Nichols opened in twice as many theaters as X8, but only made $600,000. That put it in 13th place with just $600 per theater. That's despite being Regal's Monday mystery movie a few weeks back. That's very bad for a fledgling indie distributor. Vertical's release of Hamlet starring Riz Ahmed into 325 theaters didn't do much better, making just $190,000. Steven Soderbergh's The CHRISOPHERS, starring Sir Ian McKellen and Michaela Cole, opened in 4 theaters in New York and LA. It did decently with 80,000 or 20,000 per theater. It's actually going to expand into a few hundred more theaters this weekend. I'm not really sure how many yet as of yet, but at this point, it's pretty easy to get into the top 10 nowadays. So I wouldn't be surprised if that gets to the top 10. Thankfully, there's a much lighter weekend with just 2 new wide releases, both genre films. One of them is another horror film with a familiar title. The other one's an action movie with an Emmy-winning television star who's transitioned into becoming a bona fide movie action star in recent years. First up, we have Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which I won't be seeing until Tuesday, but it seems like a pretty straightforward horror movie that might not have anything to do with the Boris Karloff or the Brendan Fraser movies. Let's check out that trailer.
Can I get 2 slices of pizza?
No.
Of course, honey.
No, you never ever finish 2.
Hello?
Mr. and Mrs. Cannon, I'm Deputy Chief at the U.S. Embassy. Your daughter Katie has been found. She's alive.
It's very important you fully prepare yourself for what you're about to see. No sudden moves. No loud noises.
Hey, Butterfly. It's Mom and Dad.
Yeah, we are here.
Lee Cronin's The Mummy, not to be confused with all the other movies called The Mummy, is the latest collab between Blumhouse and James Wan's Atomic Monster. Instead of being at Universal, where most might be expecting a Mummy movie, this is at Wan's home for the Conjuring movies, New Line and Warner Brothers. Although the movies had notoriously bad test screenings, New Line has been stepping up with its marketing in recent weeks, with absolutely chilling trailers, which should help get horror fans out to theaters in a year where we've had a mixed bag when it comes to horror. Irish filmmaker Lee Cronin directed the most recent Evil Dead incarnation called Evil Dead Rise, which Warner Brothers released in April 2023 to the tune of $24.5 million opening, and it made $67 million domestic and almost $80 million overseas. For Lee Cronin's version of The Mummy, the biggest name star is fellow Irishman Jack Rayner, who starred in Sing Street and Midsommar. As I've said many times before, horror lives and dies more from its premise and the title than its cast. Of course, that didn't really help Faces of Death last weekend, which should have been easy to sell based on the title alone. Presumably, having The Mummy in the title might get people interested, even if it didn't help Faces of Death. Although this definitely feels like more of a straight horror movie, like the original Boris Karloff movie in 1932. Maybe a bit more modern and intense, like Cronin's Evil Dead movie. It certainly won't help that Lee Winnell's Blumhouse-produced Wolfman movie in January 2025 opened with less than $11 million and only made $35 million internationally, which is a very daunting sign for a new version of The Mummy. That one was released by Universal, so it already had more connections to the Universal Monsters world than Lee Cronin's The Mummy will, because it seems like it'll be more of a standalone horror film. Reviews for Lee Cronin's Mummy will hit sometime on Thursday morning, including my own, presumably, but early reactions, mostly from influencers, have generally been positive. So we'll see whether critics like it at all. We won't know until well after this is posted. I personally wasn't a huge fan of Evil Dead Rise, but I'm optimistic from what I've seen that this will be an original horror take on The Mummy. Because of that, I have a gut feeling that Lee Cronin's The Mummy could open upwards of $15 million, maybe even closer to 17 or 18 million. And then we'll just have to see how the cinema score pans out to see if audiences might tell their friends to go see it in the weeks before May when we start having like multiple horror movies back to back. Better Call Saul star Bob Odenkirk is back in action with Normal, a movie written by Derek Kolstad of John Wick fame and directed by Ben Wheatley, who last directed Meg to The Trench. Here's the trailer, and I'll talk more about it afterwards.
Why are you here?
I used to be a regular sheriff. I walked through life with my head held high. I kind of stopped trusting my instincts.
Death comes for us all, don't it, lawman?
You've been listening to my internal monologue, haven't you? I took a sheriff job in a little town called Normal, Minnesota.
Weather advisory, a winter storm threatening later this week.
Reports two assholes screaming at each other.
All right, separate! People seem friendly enough. Whoa, 16.8 million. Where the hell did this town get that kind of money?
Community really came together on that one.
Yeah, I would say. Is that a police scanner you got? You keeping tabs on me?
Yes, sir.
This is a hell of an armory.
Did you catch that?
Yeah, it's my one trick.
What do you think of our little town?
It's, charming.
Oh, shit.
Keep your hands where I can see them! If you don't play this right, we're gonna have a massacre in there.
For many years, Bob Odenkirk was best known for his television work on Mr. Show, and then both Breaking Bad, and then his own spin-off series, Better Call Saul. He received many Emmy nominations for the latter, but he never actually won one. He actually won 3 Emmys for his writing, going back to his stint writing for SNL in the late 80s, early 90s. Odenkirk also had a key role in Alexander Payne's Oscar-nominated 2013 movie Nebraska, although he wasn't one of the actors who got an Oscar nomination out of it. In 2021, Bob Odenkirk's first action movie, Nobody, got released literally a week after movie theaters reopened in March, after being shut down during COVID. But at the time, audience was still hesitant to go back into theaters. It's a little strange that a movie that opened at the height of COVID in 2021 would get a sequel that would only open with a little bit more 4 years later with the fear of COVID in the rearview mirror. Those movies were back with the marketing cloud of Universal, while Normal is being released by indie Magnolia Pictures, who has slowly been picking up bigger movies out of festivals to give them wider releases. Normal was something they bought after it premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival, aka TIFF, last September. Since it premiered at TIFF and then played South by Southwest this past March, as well as at other film festivals. It's currently at 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, which hopefully will translate into people wanting to go see it in theaters. Opening roughly 2,000 theaters, it almost seems like it might be able to make 5 to 6 million in its opening weekend, which would make it a nice hit for Magnolia Pictures, who hasn't really had a movie open that big in quite some time. I also spoke to director Ben Wheatley, an interview you can watch right after this, and then come back right afterwards, because I might have a few other movies that might be getting a moderate or wide release to talk about. Talked to each other a lot of times over the years, and I feel like every time I talk to you, it's about a different kind of movie. It's never the same movie twice, so congratulations on that.
Cheers.
Now, I know Bob and Derek have been working together now for, a bunch of movies, and I know they kind of came up with this and we're probably figuring it out. How did they end up coming to you, and what kind of interested you about directing this?
I think they'd seen Free Fire, and that had made, they saw in that kind of elements of practical action and an attention to detail for action that they were looking for normal, so a grounding of the action. So, and it was just basically through my agent Phil Damacor, I got the thing came through, and just immediately you see Derek Kolstadt's name, and you're like, oh right, okay, this is John Wick, and then it's and then Bob Odenkirk, who I'd loved from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, and I'd seen Nobody, which I thought was a fantastic movie. So it was a very quick decision, basically. And then I read the script, and I really loved it, and I was kind of like, well, as you said before, it's lots of different movies. I try and make films that are very different from each other if I can. Obviously there's usually themes running through that are similar, but with this, it felt like a neo-Western to me, and a Western was something I really wanted to do. So it kind of, that was the extra sweetener, but generally it's kind of, I think they got me at just the front cover of the script. In the director's notes or the director's statement, you say that it's a mix of action and anti-action. And I've never heard that term before, anti-action. What exactly is anti-action? It felt like there was a rhythm in the script that was, that it wasn't necessarily just the main character going through it, confronting bad guys and defeating them. That there was another rhythm underneath there that Derek had written in, which was more like the town and the environment would kill you as much as being a part of the plot would kill you. And I kind of like that, that there was a danger, a physical danger, and it was almost like a kind of Final Destination style kind of cause and effect throughout the movie that's there, and that kind of played to. What I was interested as well was with Bob's character Ulysses, that we worked hard at trying to make sure that he wasn't too into killing people. It was he was worried about people. There was empathy. And that was important. I think that he's trying to save people all the time as well as fighting them, so that there was. It made him feel more human. Did you or Derek or Bob want to bring in some of the John Wick or Nobody stunt people, or do you have any people you wanted to use, or what was sort of like the? There was crossover a little bit with the crews because it was in Winnipeg, and they just finished Nobody too. So there was, I think, the physical effects people were the same, but it was there's people across the show that kind of share the same lineage, definitely, yeah. So you did it in Winnipeg. So you actually had real snow, real cold. You did it. Did you do it in the winter too? Did you actually do it? Yeah. When it's the coldest there? Yeah. Crazy. Okay. I mean, we there was a bit of that. I mean, look, the whole thing had been scheduled to shoot when we got snow, and then as we got towards filming, it was really sunny and bright. So we didn't really get the snow till the end of the schedule. When the cold came, it came. It was brutal. Yeah. Now, Bob had obviously done these the Nobody movies, and had already had the experience doing action. Was it? Do you want to just throw as much as you could at him to see what he can do, or do you kind of just work on his, like, talk to him beforehand about what his boundaries are as far as doing action? I mean, he was like at the top of his condition, and I think he hadn't stopped training since Nobody 1, so he'd been after Nobody finished shooting, he kept training all the way through. So I think he's just generally very fit. And it's more about like what action made sense for the tone of the film rather than how far you could push him in terms of the craziness of the thing. And what we'd figured was that his fighting style was much more scrappy, and he's not a trained
he's not special forces or any of that stuff that Hutch is. He's much more more of a normal guy in an extraordinary situation. He's good. He has some training, but not very much. So that's what kind of helped us form the fighting styles and the action.
Besides Bob and Lena, who I knew very well, I mean, the cast is amazing because there's a lot of people who I don't really know, wasn't really familiar with. Was it just like a casting call either up in the area or?
Yeah, totally. It was a lot of people from Manitoba. And there is crossover there with the cast and of Nobody too. There's definitely people who are back and forwards and in Nobody as well. But yeah, it was the Canadian cast were brilliant. You know, I was really happy with that.
I gotta say the sequence in the diner towards the end, it's the action is just like next level. That's like just an amazing set piece. It's one of the, you know, you've done some pretty cool ones before, but this was like how do you prepare for something like that? What was like sort of like your, you know, how to get prepared for doing that whole sequence?
It's a lot of storyboarding from my end. So I sit down and I draw the whole film out and have a look at it. And then so in that sequence, we were looking at all these tables and I was thinking, oh, you could flip the tables over. And then what if the tables were like a thing that would obscure people? And so that begins. So you do a lot of storyboards for that. And then you go to the fight coordinators and talk to them. And then they reinterpret that backwards and forwards. And then over a lot of conversations, it's like there's kind of a bracket of time and money and what's possible, and then you get into it, and then on the day it's like the first unit, which would be my unit, would shoot. We'd get as much as it if we could, and then the second unit would shoot. So they would, while I'm off shooting something else, so they fill in some of the little bits, and then we'll be editing it live and looking at it and going, okay, well that's all cool. Maybe we could do this, this, and this, and then you're like commissioning little bits of it as it's going on. So that was really important on Normal, that we had an on-set editor, so we were cutting as we shot, so we could see everything that we were doing straight away, so we could be very nimble like that.
But you finished this back in September when it was a TIFF. Have you lined up something else next? Do you want to know what you want to do next after this?
No, I'm kind of writing at the moment, and I had another film called Bulk, which came out, that's been playing in Europe and like all over the UK, so I've been going around with that. I think I probably have a little bit of a break, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know what's next. It's like we'll wait and see what happens with Normal, I guess.
Listen, it's great seeing you again, Ben. You know, your premiere tonight's at my local theater, the Metrograph. That's my local theater. It's like a block away from where I live. So
it's super cool. I went there yesterday for the tech test. It's a great cinema.
Oh, amazing. And then you look at the programming. The programming is just like everything.
Yesterday they were playing Point Blank at 2:00 in the afternoon. So I was like, nice.
Yeah, that's a block away from me. I can literally go over there and just wander over there, see whatever's playing. And I do that every weekend. So
you're a lucky man.
I know. Believe me, it's the only thing I have luck with is that movie theater. Ben, been great to see you. Thanks. Normal was great. I really loved it. So,
thank you, man.
Congratulations on that. And talk to you later, man. See ya.
Later.
Opening moderately into foreign theaters is Lorne, the new doc from Morgan Neville, who won the Oscar for 20 Feet from Stardom and has made other great docs like Won't You Be My Neighbor, Piece by Piece, and the recent Paul McCartney doc, Man on the Run. This is Focus Features' second doc to be released into theaters in the last month, so we'll have to see if fans of Saturday Night Live will want to see a movie about its creator and producer, Lorne Michaels. Reviews for the movie are under embargo until Wednesday, so I'll talk more about it in the print edition later this week. Also, Steven Soderbergh's The CHRISOPHERS, starring Sir Ian McKellen and Michaela Cole, I Will Destroy You, will expand to more theaters via Neon this week. Although at this point, I'm not sure if it's a few hundred theaters or over 500 plus theaters. I'll have a review for this in the print portion of this. I'll also have a review of David Lowery's Mother Mary, which Michaela Cole stars in with Anne Hathaway. So she has two movies that'll be out in theaters over the next few weeks. That's it for this week. The next few weeks have a lot more wide releases to talk about, but this week is more about the limited releases. And I'll have reviews of The CHRISOPHERS and Mother Mary in the print portion of the Weekend Warrior Show, and then even more reviews later this week.